The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's number one three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's number one choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.
We're really big about continuous improvement, getting better, and also a lot of collaboration across the industry. And it makes me think of right now, we're currently working, I know you're a little bit aware of it, Tim, and I think others might too, but we have a pretty strong partnership with Dean Salone's new company, Create Energy. And he's always been on the front end of innovation. And we've had conversations, and I think, Helga, you've been involved, about how we integrate automation, how we try to meet some of these labor workforce issues. And we're in the process of putting a demo tracker at their Portland, Tennessee site. And Matt and I, and probably Helga and a few others, we look forward to the ongoing brainstorming and innovation on how to make things cost less, how to make things build faster, how to keep more stuff in the U.S. And so,
are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our host Tim Montague bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility, solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
Welcome to Mastering Solar Project Success, Speed, Partnerships, and Problem Solving in the IRA Era. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Welcome to a Clean Power Hour live event. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple or Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm excited to host what promises to be an incredibly valuable discussion today about accelerating solar project execution while maintaining the quality standards our industry demands. In today's fast-paced world, the ability to move quickly without compromising quality isn't just an advantage, it is essential. We brought together 4 industry veterans who have collectively delivered hundreds of successful projects, and they're here to share their real-world experiences and practical solutions. I'm pleased to welcome our panelists, Eric Goodwin, Vice President of Business Development at OMCO Solar, Matt Kessler, Director of Solar Technology for OMCO Solar, Helga Biernath, President and CEO of Sunstall, and John Mittman, CEO of Abodo Energy. A bit about these companies. OMCO is a major manufacturer of solar racking solutions, both fixed tilt and tracker, with over 7 gigawatts of capacity. They work closely with both Sunstall, a mechanical installer based in California and working nationally on 1 to 20 megawatt projects, and Abodo Energy, a leading commercial solar EPC based in Arizona. These leaders have been in the trenches, solving real problems and developing innovative approaches to project execution. They'll be sharing specific examples from their work together, including an impressive 22 megawatt project, a tracker project, shipped and built in 8 weeks. During our discussion, we'll explore how domestic manufacturing and strong supplier partnerships can dramatically reduce project timelines. We'll dive into practical strategies for managing IRA compliance while maintaining aggressive schedules, and examine solutions for common field challenges that every solar professional faces. What makes this webinar special is its focus on real-world examples and practical solutions. Our speakers will share insights from their successful 100-project partnership, including specific cases like the Wilcox, Arizona project that went from initial contact to completion in just 8 weeks. So whether you're dealing with supply chain challenges, tight schedules, or complex site conditions, you'll walk away with actionable strategies you can implement in your own projects. Let's get started with what promises to be an engaging and informative discussion. So first, Eric and Matt, please introduce yourselves and OMCO briefly and tell us about this 22 megawatt tracker project shipped and built in 8 weeks. Eric.
Thanks, Tim. It's great to be on here and talk through some of these projects we've worked together. My name is Eric Goodwin. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for OMCO Solar. I'm based in our Phoenix, Arizona facility. OMCO is the largest custom roll former of steel in the U.S. We serve multiple markets with roll form products, both transportation, material handling, industrial, and most importantly to us, solar. We manufacture our own single access trackers, fixed tilt solutions, and also foundations in one of our 6 U.S. plants. I'll roll it over to Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Kessler. I'm the Director of Solar Technology at OMCO Solar. Eric and I both work together at our plant in Phoenix, and I work mostly on the product development side. We have a really excellent team of mechanical, structural, reliability engineers, electrical engineers, data scientists, software engineers, and computer scientists developing both structural components like the bearing that we can that is one of the strengths of our product. It helps in project execution a lot, and also new control system that is streamlining the amount of time it takes to bring a site up.
And I know, Matt, you did ask about the 22 megawatt project that we completed earlier this year in Texas. We had a situation where a customer of ours had a very late change in project scope. We had quoted this project a few times. They went initially in another direction, and the supplier at late stage was not able to deliver. And we were able to put together, between the capacity we have in multiple plants, all of the shipments for a 22 megawatt tracker project and deliver everything except controls in an initial 8 weeks, with the controls coming 2 weeks after. This allowed our customer to be able to maintain project schedules and budget. It's not typical for us to be able to turn around things this quickly, but we are capable with that domestic supply base, everything being made in-house by us, to do some pretty special things there. And this project was definitely one where we had to exhaust some creativity and move some things around to be able to meet that schedule.
So tell us a little bit about some of the key decisions and partnerships that made this very aggressive timeline possible. And I did show a slide. If you want me to bring that back, just let me know.
Sure. Yeah. If you could bring that up, maybe for a little bit of context. And again, I'll let Matt add if there's anything here. But, the biggest thing we had to do is OMCO is a steel company, and we buy a lot of steel across multiple markets. And so the biggest thing for us was figuring out where the steel was going to come from, how to move some things around to be able to start manufacturing immediately. We also made some adjustments in our shift staffing in our Phoenix plant. And then also we have 2 different plants, one in Pearson, Indiana, and one in Phoenix, Arizona, where we could produce our own tracker torque tubes. And having both capacity with both of those facilities allowed us to ship from 2 locations at the same time. So really it was about putting together a very aggressive schedule on manufacturing, and then also lining up our freight partners, and then working closely with the customer on installer support. We had some of our team out as product was being delivered, going through and doing a golden row quality check. Also with any training, because Sunstall was not part of this install, but the installer on this project definitely benefited from having additional training on how to use best practices and follow the install manual. So there was definitely a manufacturing presence, a freight presence, and also a field service presence through that 8 to 10 weeks. And then as the build started, that progressed very, very quickly as well.
Great. Matt, do you want to add anything before we move on?
Only that Eric touched on this, and I think Helga can talk about this some also, but we get really good feedback on feedback. We get really good feedback on responsiveness when there's a question or where there's an issue at the site, because we're US based and because we have our whole team in the US. We can quite often respond, within hours or instantly, and help some little thing that could otherwise cause delays.
Great. So let's move on to Helga Biernath. From your perspective as CEO of Sunstall, what have you found to be the most critical elements of a successful manufacturer installer partnership, Helga?
Tim, thank you for having me. And first, maybe to give some background on Sunstall. So we're doing the installation of trackers and fixed tilt since 15 years in the United States. We've worked from Hawaii to Massachusetts, from Texas to New York, in roughly 37 states so far. We've worked on 1,000 projects and probably on 35 different systems. Why am I telling you that? Because we're talking about partnership and why it is important. And you can tell that many of these systems do not, or the manufacturers do not exist anymore. So here comes the first thing, it's important to have somebody who is actually still exists, for the lifetime of a project. But for us, from a installation perspective, and why we love our relationship here, is it starts with the clear and consistent communication. I mean, Matt alluded to it. There is feedback immediately when there is a question, but it's also say what you do and do what you say, right? I mean, it's true for us as well as for hopefully our clients, and John can speak to that later, and also for the racking manufacturer and supplier there. That's important. Also, the timely and the quality of the materials delivered. It doesn't mean anything for us to get all the racking without the piles, first. So then we're sitting there and can look at a stack of racking, but cannot do anything. So it's important not only to be in time, but also have the right sequence of the materials so that we can execute. And sure, it also has to be the right quality so that we can that we don't have to go back or fix things on the site. So that's very important, and I think that speaks to OMCO having also 4 places in the United States where they can manufacture. So even if there would be an issue, it's easy for them to supply the additional material or whatever else is needed if we mess something up to finish the project in time. Very important, different than if you have a supply chain which might be not within the country, or if you're not producing it yourself. And then obviously with repetition, and we're going to talk about that later, comes the in-depth understanding of the system, of the processes, of the people. And we really appreciate, the longevity of the relationship. And when you look at the people right here, Eric and Matt, I mean, we know each other probably for 6-7 years, and there is consistency. We know each other, we know the people know each other, and so communication is easy.
Yeah, I don't doubt that communication is really important. And you also mentioned logistics. Nobody likes it when things show up in the wrong order. I'd like to get John in the discussion here, and then we'll do some back and forth with the three of you. But John, you were involved in, well, first, tell us a little bit about Obodo. You have a very unique name. I'd love to hear what the story is there. And then this Wilcox project in Arizona. Take us behind the scenes a little bit because that is a very impressive 8-week timeline.
Yeah, sure. So the name Obodo Energy, Obodo is it's an Igbo word from the Nigerian culture, which means community. So, kind of the essence of our the way that we roll as a business is all about community building and kind of engaging through the projects and through the work that we do. A little bit about our company. So we're what I would refer to as kind of an ESCO 2.0, an energy services company, which means that we provide broader efficiency, kind of holistic solutions for our CNI customer base. And really, we have a focus in solar and storage integration as well. So we're a developer, EPC, and maintenance provider. But most of that work kind of translates into the development and EPC realm. So the Wilcox project was it was a tall ask, a tall order for anyone that knows, how projects come together in the industry for a commercial project in particular. the permitting, the kind of existing site conditions, all the things that you typically have to deal with, for a 4 megawatt project like this with 5 interconnections, to have it completed essentially in 8 to 12 weeks, from start to finish is just really not just a minor miracle. It's I'd say a pretty significant miracle that everything pulled together. So yeah, this project, it was 5 individual fixed tilt OMCO tracking systems installed by Sunstall in partnership with a handful of our other subs that kind of helped us to build that project quickly. I'd say kind of the core of this project, the way that we were able to get it done was kind of referring to the old Simon Sinek book, The Speed of Trust. I've known Eric. I'm on the board of the State Solar Trade Association, and we work together quite a bit with OMCO in Arizona. But I trust Eric. I trust OMCO, and we've had the success from prior projects. OMCO really brought Sunstall into the fold, and all I can say is throughout the entirety of the project, it was all about communication, organization, and flexibility that made that project a success. So we were able to get it done quickly, right on time. Permission to operate again from starting the project to essentially October 7th, hitting the site, to having substantial completion by December 23rd. So it's pretty incredible, and proud to be in partnership with the team here.
And as you can see here, this is a multi-site project. So servicing a large greenhouse facility, but there are several arrays. So it's not a simple project by any stretch of the imagination. Eric and Helga, tell us a little bit about some specific challenges that you guys as a team were able to overcome to achieve this, because this there's challenges on every project. That's normal. But I'm so curious how you seem to get the stars to align so well on this project.
Yeah, I'll start on kind of the supplier side, if you will. As John said, when we first started talking about this and looking at the timelines, the first place that I thought immediately, and that's usually the first place I think about on a lot of projects that Helga's team and OMCO get a chance to work on together, is that we need to pull Sunstall in, because, as what was said before, we have the ability to move very quickly. And so I think the biggest challenge that we got POs in place. We did a kickoff meeting immediately, and a big piece for us to provide to our installers and to our end customers is making sure that we've got a preliminary set and a final set of engineering drawings, construction drawings, what's going to be built, how long are the piles going to be, all of the details that go into the build. And so our engineering team did a great job of pulling those together, preliminary sets, in about 3 to 4 days. And then John and Helga and his team got a chance to review, and we were off and running. And I think that's always a big challenge, because many sites, when you look at foundations, are on difficult terrain, or you're looking through geotech reports, doing pile testing. We had enough data to really move fast on, and we were able to make some good decisions on the design. But that was a really big challenge for us to get that into Helga's team's hands within the right time, so they could start mobilizing. We built this project out of our Phoenix, Arizona plant, so we had the benefit of literally shipping it 2.5 hours to the site. And so everything came out of there, which was obviously one reason we had the ability to build it as quickly as we did. But then at the same time, Helga, who does a ton of work in Arizona and is California based and has people everywhere, and I'll let him elaborate on that. But he was able to pull together a team very quickly to be ready when stuff arrived to the site.
Eric, I think we cannot underestimate, how important John's actions were. Because, I mean, you introduced us, and we didn't know each other. But here comes the trust and do what you say portion in. Because John was really believing in what Eric told him and was listening to what we had to say about, the process. And it paid out, at the end of the day. I mean, and because of your decisive action, and I mean, not only signing a contract, but also, supporting us with all the documentation, listening to our advice in terms of the IRA. We didn't need it that time, and we're going to elaborate more on that, Tim, later. Um, but it was important, just so that we're also in compliance, and we cannot forget that portion these days, right? I mean, this was also an IRA project, and so we had to be fully in compliance, with all the apprentices and also from a payment perspective with prevailing wage. So I think, my life is much easier if my customer is decisive, knows what they're doing, and gives me the signatures and the support we need to be efficient. And then luckily we have the wrecking partner with OMCO who can provide the materials at the point when we need it. I mean, and John pushed on that too. We need the piles first, and we need them right there to make, your dates happen. And it happened. Eric, Ryan, and the whole team, was able to pull it together. But again, I have to stretch, that our customer at the end of the day is important to make these things happen. If they're not organized, they do not have a plan, and we talk about, refusals and that kind of stuff later, then I'm just hanging in the air. I don't know what to do because I need decisions. So, John, thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
Helga.
Appreciate that.
before I go to John here, I want to remind our listeners that you can put questions in the Q&A chat. It's a tool right at the bottom of your interface called Q&A. So please do enter some questions you have for this team, and we'll be happy to answer those live. John, it sounds like this was quite an incredible juggling act, but could you just walk us through kind of cliff notes of how the project came together, and why was there a sense of urgency to get it done? I mean, one of the phenomenon that can be quite unnerving in the solar industry is how construction projects tend to really come to a head in Q3 and Q4 when the weather isn't necessarily the easiest for field work. But give us a little more insight, John, into how this project came together, and then, if you would, what you perceived as the ability of Helga and OMCO to work together collaboratively.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll say first of all, we have the benefit in Arizona of having fairly temperate conditions that allow us to work, year round without too much issue. But yeah, I mean, this project, that kind of the essence of this project coming together was that the owner of this facility was recently purchased, had a 2022 tax liability that, for the purposes of the tax credits, they had the ability, if they monetize the tax credits in 2024 through, permission to operate or, commercial operation, um, to pull those tax credits back, up to 3 years, and then apply them, retroactively to their liability. So it was kind of a realization for this, large tax liability, that this was an opportunity to really make it happen, but it needed to have, you know, I would say, again, the trust element was key. We had kind of letters of intent, which allowed us to get moving, and with working with the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, which was Graham County, and Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Co-op. They really allowed us to have this kind of permitting process as we're going, as the designs are coming together. In all, at least on the front end from a development perspective, and from the kind of the nations of the project. I think it took a lot for that to come together. And then when it comes to actually the project, again, working with the Sunstall team and Helga's team and Eric, at Eric and rather OMCO generally. Eric, I give you a lot of credit because I trust you so
Yes.
much.
No, I appreciate
Um,
you, John. We got a great team around us, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. So when it came to making the project happen so quickly, driving the piles in the ground, having, the ability to connect with Eric's team when we had to make adjustments in the field because of existing conditions or refusals or, modifying the foundation designs for, certain piles here and there. It allowed us to Helga's point, I think we were quite organized in terms of all the information and the key decision points that were necessary to keep the project moving forward, shifting crews from one field to another while we were kind of adjusting, the design on one site. And then again, having the overall flexibility of the jurisdiction and the permitting kind of groups to allow those revisions to happen in a manner that didn't require us to, halt the entire project. So it was a collective effort. I won't say that, we were, the only reason that it was success. It's always a team thing, but I can say from an external standpoint, beyond just, the implementation group, we really were blessed with, some good situations there.
Helga, do you want to speak from your perspective about any particular challenges you were able to overcome?
No, this project, luckily we had no further challenges besides, in the beginning, IRAC compliance topics, but we're going to talk about that later. But we had another project in Illinois recently with the OMCO system where we had refusals, which could happen everywhere, and the beauty with the relationship and how we work together is what Matt spoke about, that we get answers pretty quickly. So, and we need them because obviously this could be now a situation where things have to be either taken out and drilled and tested and whatsoever. So, or it's just, okay, test it, give us the data, and we cut and drill and we move on, which would be the most favorable solution to keep the flow going on the field. So again, communication, decisiveness from engineers, having enough understanding, and Dave Wilson, who is here, the head of the group, is great. He looks at the stuff and then he gives you an answer, and that's what we need. I mean, we need the experience in the field. I've seen it many times over the years. If you have inexperienced people, then it's dragging along. You're going to be too conservative on the solutions because you have never done this, and I get it. You want to be on the safe side. So having that in place is not only helping us to save money, it also helps the customer to save money, right? If I can just do a testing instead of, oh no, take them all out and we pre-drill and we do it again, and then the change orders are just flying. So this is important. Also important, to have that plan B, C, and D in place before we even go to the site. We faced another challenge with a different, system just recently in Virginia, where it took almost 2 months to get finally the approval for all the mitigations and steps. And now think about that on a 3 megawatt job like what we did in Arizona. If I have to wait 2 months, to just get decisions, to finally move on, and the cost are the cost. I'm sorry, if it has to be concrete, it has to be concrete. But that's the point. That's the comparison of, can I do it, in 90 days, the whole thing, or do I need to wait 2 months, to get decisions to finally move on? So that's the beauty of that relationship, that the information and the decisions are coming.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855 584 7168 to find out more. Great. We're going to segue to the IRA portion of this shortly, but we did get a question of clarification. The Levelland 22 megawatt project there was also an 8-week reference there. Eric and Matt, what exactly was the scope for that 8-week period?
Yes, the 8-week period was purchase time from the receipt of the purchase order for this project. We had a schedule that we signed up for to deliver all of the piles, all of the tracker structural components, and all of the everything in essence except the controllers and the anemometers and the electrical controls. So piles, bearings, torque tubes, module mounts, drive motors. We were able to deliver that entire project by I think the final date was July 31st. And one of the things that was driving that schedule, I didn't mention it before, but the customer was in a situation where they had to take safe harbor modules if they did not have at least the initial structural to mount modules. And there was a lot of concern around where you'd store them, paying additional drayage fees, et cetera, with that. And so we ended up delivering the final controls within the next 2 to 3 weeks, which was what we agreed on in the schedule. So that was kind of the scope around that.
Great. Before we move on, does anyone want to say anything else about these specific project collaborations?
If I can add one thing on the Wilcox project, again, John, we appreciate the partnership and with Helga and his team over the last 60 plus years, and we're looking forward to growing that. We're actually going to be doing the ribbon cutting for the Wilcox project on March 6th in Arizona. And so we're excited to see that come to a finalization. But really enjoyed the collaboration. And I think, and probably many of the individuals listening on this webinar today, there's tremendous amount of examples of how we collaborate in this industry together. And this is only one of them. And so, I'm always great to hear stories about those type of things and to be part of it. And so it was just really fun project to do.
Great. So for all of the panelists, we're all navigating IRA compliance while trying to maintain aggressive schedules. What practical strategies have you developed to balance these demands? Maybe we'll start with you, John and Helga.
Yeah. So I think as it relates to the IRA compliance, for prevailing wages, for projects above, 1 megawatt AC, as just kind of one example, we, in certain cases, from a design and development standpoint, we have the ability on the commercial and industrial side to, kind of figure out ways to work around it. So just as an example, we have a multifamily development project that, contiguous property boundaries create a bit of an issue where, if you combine the systems, they can get above 1 megawatt AC if you're not, I would say organized in terms of how the system sizes come together. But we always approach it with that mindset. We either try to dial systems back or kind of adjust DC to AC ratios to make sure that we stay below those thresholds, or if we're above those thresholds, we're committing full steam ahead. And really what that requires, I think because the IRA prevailing wage stuff is so new for most of the industry, um, it really comes down to working with subcontractors with our team that, so they understand the forms that are necessary, um, I'm forgetting the actual number of the form, for the, kind of wage reporting. But in any case, it's working with team members that know how to, navigate those elements. Otherwise, on the IRA side, I think, we're working with the direct pay and elective pay and some of those other kind of more creative things, which is more so a filing thing. For example, just nonprofits that, let's say, for example, 501c3s they they may or may not have established the tax filing years. Churches, for example, just end on this example where now with the direct pay grant, they have to establish their filing year. Well, we have the ability to basically move quarter by quarter in order to establish, the right year for when those direct pay grants, can actually apply and kind of be recognized as quickly as possible. I know that's not really common and kind of we don't see too many ground mount systems that have that component included in it, but it's something generally that we've learned to navigate.
Yeah,
So
and
to add on, okay.
before you chime in, Helga, there's a question from the audience about the applicability of the IRA incentives. Is this something that developers and installers have really a choice about? I would argue no. If you're doing a megawatt scale plus project, your owner, whether that's an IPP or a host of the project, is going to want to take the full advantage of the ITC, and that means IRA compliance. But Helga, what is your perspective on IRA compliance?
I think, Tim, we have to clarify the terms. I think it should be called taxpayer. So the taxpayer is the one actually getting the benefits, whoever that is, And I've took quite some lessons, over the last couple of years. And by the way, we've done, prevailing wage jobs already in 2015. So our organization has been set up, for 2 years, 3 years, to be compliant with all the Inflation Reduction Act requirements. So number one, I think, most important, we're coming back to communication, but the expectation management and the understanding of the requirements, is key. And it comes back to the taxpayer, because sometimes I have the feeling shit goes down the drain, and everybody thinks that the sub at the end of the day is going to decide, what the people are going to be paid and what the requirements are and what the documentation is. No. The opposite, it starts at the head. The taxpayer determines, what has to be paid, how it has to be documented, because they have to then report back to the IRS. And why am I saying that? Because I'm seeing it day in, day out that it's not clear what kind of documentation. And on top of that, if you work in California, if you work in Illinois, if you work in other states, there might be also state requirements where you have to fulfill and send more documents even for the state, which might be different, especially in California and Illinois, where you have one set documentation for the IRA compliance and one set, for the state, just to complicate things here. Key to me is, again, the communication, to have the right IT infrastructure in place to be able to track, to report, to record, and then to pay the right amount, and also to track the percentage of the apprentices. And then another little key nugget here, which John and us did prior to executing the project. If you can get an LNTP prior for 45 days, because if you can't get the apprentices, which in a growing economy, I don't see that everybody can get the apprentices they need, which means you need a negative notice, and negative notice needs 45 days before construction starts. Little nugget here, LNTP for that, even though you don't have a contract, helps you tremendously to overcome that hurdle. Otherwise, you might be, you're getting in trouble. So that's how we navigate it. And yeah.
And I think just adding to that, in Arizona, just as an example, for heavy machine work, kind of the apprenticeship programs, you have to, right, to meet the prevailing wage, and apprenticeship requirements. You need to have an officially designated apprenticeship program, and for all these different trades on a typical project as they're coming together, that really at the state level will vary across the board. So again, it's about A, knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're looking for, and B, being able to, find and verify those resources so that you can, check that box.
And Eric, tell us about domestic content, because there is a domestic content adder in the IRA, and of course OMCO is a domestic manufacturer. But give us the big picture on that. What are installers and developers trying to achieve? It's completely non-trivial.
Yes, definitely. From a supplier standpoint, when you look at the IRA, and there's been a couple different levels of guidance from Treasury from the initial bill passing. OMCO has always had the same business model since day one, which is U.S. manufacturing, U.S. steel. So we've benefited. We've been able to add a lot of value to our customers through this domestic content capabilities. But what we look at is it really varies by product. Our fixed tilt product is a very clear requirement of 100% iron and steel, which we meet, and so normally that's pretty easy to be able to present. The tracker, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated because it's looked at as a manufactured product. Before we had the recent Table 15 Treasury guidance, there was a pretty involved formula to take a look at domestically made parts versus overhead and a couple of other, we call it the cost model calculation, to get to domestic content. The safe harbor template model that's been released a few months ago and updated actually this week, earlier this week, it really provides a benefit to the taxpayer, to our customer, because they can basically take a table and look through everything from inverters to modules to trackers, and they can be able to break out what's domestic and what isn't. And so we make all of the structural components ourselves in our own factories. So we have one of the highest domestic content, and it's really case by case presenting to the customer what they need from a domestic content. But then the other piece of it is the quest that we have, and by the end of second quarter, we'll have the option for a 100% domestic content tracker. We're at about 88 right now, 88%. Drive motors and dampers are the two components that we're finalizing U.S. capabilities, and so now it really varies customer by customer because the safe harbor template model also gives a high weight on U.S. modules. So if you have a First Solar module, there's other module companies, even our partner Create Energy with Recreate will have a U.S. module very, very soon where it's weighed very heavily. And sometimes you don't need that 100% domestic tracker. Maybe 50, 60% is okay. So really it's about now directly to that table, presenting what we make. Also, a lot of times we have to do certs, whether we track steel certs from the mill. We also have lot traceability on all of our products through each of our manufacturing plants. So depending on what level of documentation detail that the customer needs, we're ready to supply it. But I do think that table has made it a lot easier to navigate. And the last part from a supplier that we take into consideration is also the 45X manufacturing tax credit. We benefit from that based off the torque tube tax credit. I believe we're the only tracker supplier in the U.S. that actually makes our own torque tubes in our own factory, both in Indiana and in Phoenix. I could be wrong, but I believe most others are sourcing that, and it's unknown whether they have to share that tax credit with the manufacturer or how that's set up. But we do get the opportunity to factor that tax credit, and many times helps us be more competitive, kind of levels the playing field as far as our pricing is concerned. And then we also get a tax credit for what they call fasteners, which would be bearings, module mounts. And as we get to 100% domestic content option, there's also a production tax credit that's added. So I think that 45X has been huge for us as well. Obviously, with the new administration, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts. But I know the industry is fighting really hard to keep those parts of the clean energy credits. But from a supplier standpoint, it just varies by project of what we're being asked to provide.
And of course, the question that everyone is asking, here we are, January 23, Donald Trump has just re-entered the White House. And the question that everyone's asking is he going to try to destroy the IRA? Personally, the signal that I see is that he will make a lot of bluster about attacking the IRA, but at the end of the day, he will not be able to kill or in any way significantly harm the IRA because of the economic benefits that it is giving so many red states today across the U.S. But if any of the panelists want to comment, it's still too early to know, of course, but it is worth commenting on, I think, if anyone wants to.
So from my perspective, I just had a conversation with a developer, and they were very happy, that they believe that the cost of capital is going down, and that a lot of projects were scrapped because of the high cost of capital. So there might be some, cosmetic change on the IRA, and I'm with you, Tim. I see it the same way. At the end of the day, we just need to be cost competitive, and we need to be fast. Look at the tremendous goals they have now with AI. I mean, if they really want to build that in Texas or somewhere, you know how much energy they need? I mean, to build a nuclear plant, in 10 years. I mean, if that is AI, then sorry, that's going to be too slow. So if we're fast, if we're cost competitive, it doesn't matter. We're going to win.
Yeah. I think you're right on the money, Helga, and I agree with you in general, Tim, as far as what we hope will happen with the new administration. I do know, a couple of points that I'd like to make is, we're fortunate to be on the board of our Federal Trade Association, SEIA, and the focus has been, and I think that we've done a really good job over the past year and a half, and especially now, no moment like the present, in really having a bipartisan message and really messaging the value of what we're doing and the growth of solar. And then also, I'd heard a stat somewhere, I may be a little bit off, but roughly about 75 to 80% of the new manufacturing facilities, including our sixth factory in Huntsville, Alabama, that's a little bit over a year old, are in red states. And there's a lot of jobs being added. And I think there's an even more improvement on Republican support, bipartisan support for the benefits of solar. In some ways, because of the items that Helga put out, we've done a good job of getting costs on the utility scale, especially developing battery storage. And so, I believe that we're going to have the opportunity to grow this industry, hopefully protect these energy credits, clean energy credits. But we've really, I think the train is really moving right now, and hopefully the uncertainty that we feel now will pass sooner than later. Because anytime you do have uncertainty, it has an impact. But I'm overly optimistic for the most part.
I'll mirror the optimism. I think another point that I've made
And I hope I'm right.
publicly, yeah, another point that I've made, which is, if you look at kind of the biggest investment groups, behind the energy transition, it's a lot of the banks, it's a lot of the, insurance companies with the tax equity. It's a lot of the oil and gas companies that are investing in kind of what their future, holdings will look like. And at the end of the day, many of those organizations, they have some conservative alignment, but there's so much inertia behind the energy transition that, Tim, I agree with your comment. I think there's bluster, right? The executive order that was made yesterday, basically holding up distribution of funds from the IRA. I think that at the end of the day, there's so much, bipartisan support for the energy transition, that, again, there are plenty of reasons to be optimistic.
Great. Well, let's segue in our final 10 minutes here to partnerships. And OMCO and Helga at Sunstall have been working together on over 100 projects. There's this reference to Coldwell. I'm not sure what that is. Eric, could you set the table a little bit? And then I've also got an informational slide about this. And then I just want John to know that you should also feel free to address this theme, which is how EPCs, installers, and manufacturers can work more effectively together.
Yeah, I definitely can, Tim. With a little bit more kind of context on the 100 projects, our customer, Helga, and our team, Sunstall and OMCO, have worked on what will soon be project number 100 for Coldwell Solar in California. All of these projects are in California, mainly Central Valley, mix of fixed tilt and tractor projects. And, it really is. And in addition to these 100 projects, we've probably done another 50 for including the Wilcox one with the Sunstall team over the last 6 years. And so, having the ability, we appreciate the opportunity to have repeat business with our customers, to be able, I mean, we feel like you're only as good as your last day. We feel we don't want to take anything for granted. And we've been fortunate to have some long-term partnerships. Again, obviously working closely with Helga and team. We're starting one with John's team at Oboto, which we're really, really excited about. But the Coldwell one's pretty unique. And for them, when we look to communicate it and message this and celebrate it when it happens, it also helps our customer when they're looking at competing in the Central Valley and their markets to be able to show how much scope they've done. But we were just a few months ago looking at all of our projects and talking to our customer. We try to get face to face a few times a year, even if it's not RE plus, and realize that we were this close to this milestone. And so there's just a lot of trust and a lot of work, and no shortage of challenges. We've got a couple projects in that 100 that I used to have hair a couple years ago, and I don't. So, but yeah, it's been pretty exciting. And Helga, I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for that partnership, to get to this milestone. I remember the days, and you do too, Matt, when we both were walking the site behind me. So this is an 11 megawatt, not a Coldwell project, but one of the milestones in the beginning of our relationship, because Matt and I were talking about how can we improve the system. And that's what's about. It's all about. As Eric said, it's about the future, not the past. I mean, it's great for John, if we're talking about the past, but his project is in the future and he wants to have the best service, the best product, long lasting and on time. So we always have to be on the tippy toes all together, to provide, the service, the product, for the future. But obviously the past is giving you some guidance and is showing you kind of hopefully the path for the future. To me, it's important that we are still working on, continuous improvement. We're talking about, automation down the road. How can we do that? How can we bring in robots into our whole process? It's important to have the right system. It's important to understand how that works together. And so step by step, we get better and better. And obviously we need to keep the training, the teamwork, the communication on the same level as we have it today. And I think then, we're going to see 200, 400, 500 projects together.
Matt, could you comment a little bit about how you at OMCO have worked with Helga and other installers on modifying your products over the years?
So yeah, one of the things that was mentioned earlier was the design of the product and particularly the bearing. One of the things we worked on very hard early on and we continue to make improvements on is how the bearing allows the tracker to move smoothly with low energy, but also in the installation process, how adjustments within the bearing can be used so that you're less likely to have to replace the pile. You have some pile that's not installed perfectly for some reason, some rock or something. Do you have to cut it and replace it, or can you make an adjustment in the bearing? And so we have several dimensions and several ways that bearing can be used to achieve that, so that you're off to the races with the rest of the project. You're not bringing the pile driver back out. Helga, you've done enough sites. I think you may experience that 3 times on some site or 1 time on some site. But if you can deal with it so you don't have to bring the driver back out to the site, you might save days.
Yeah, I think, sometimes, our colleagues of engineering at a desk, forget the environment and forget the real life out there. And as I said, we've worked from Hawaii to Massachusetts. So we've seen, the challenges, in terrain and subsurface conditions, that we need all the tolerances and support we can get, from the designers, from the factory to overcome these challenges. Because I can tell you, we did a project from a competitor of yours where the piles have to be driven perpendicular. Just imagine that. They have to be perpendicular. Now, if you have ever seen pile driving, if you lift the head, the pile does what it wants. You've been in the perfect position, but because of the tension in the pile, it just goes somewhere. Now, what am I going to do? I didn't do anything wrong. I did the best I can, but still I have to overcome these challenges. So Matt, yes, thank you for that.
And so if I could add just one item, and it really just made me think, hearing Matt and Helga talk about innovation, we're really big about continuous improvement, getting better, and also a lot of collaboration across the industry. And it makes me think of right now, we're currently working, I know you're a little bit aware of it, Tim, and I think others might too, but we have a pretty strong partnership with Dean Salone's new company, Create Energy. And he's always been on the front end of innovation. And we've had conversations, and I think, Helga, you've been involved, about how we integrate automation, how we try to meet some of these labor workforce issues. And we're in the process of putting a demo tracker at their Portland, Tennessee site. And Matt and I, and probably Helga and a few others, we look forward to the ongoing brainstorming and innovation on how to make things cost less, how to make things build faster, how to keep more stuff in the US. And so, again, I think we do a lot of things in our industry around innovation. I think the solar industry doesn't get as much credit sometimes as we should. But it just kind of came to mind of larger examples that we're talking about.
I just saw the question here, and yes, innovation is great, but also repetition and to be professional on what you do as a standard is important. So to answer your question here, we have kickoff meetings for each and every project, and that's important because you talk about the nitty-gritty details of each project. You share, amongst the internal team what we just encountered, maybe also with that customer, maybe also in that region. So to share not only the lessons learned, from the design and the product, but also the region, which can have a tremendous impact. Think about animals, think about, weather, think about all these things, which are important to be able to execute on a.
He's making a great point there.
Okay. Well, just kind of bringing back to the partnership question, I as a development EPC company, we have, I guess, a kind of a slightly different perspective, but I think at the core of it, it's really about pricing, right? Pricing at the end of the day, and there are different reasons why, or kind of elements there that contribute to that. But from a manufacturing perspective with OMCO, I think that the key things for sure, having clarity around how they price projects, so that as we're developing something, if we anticipate hard day conditions or whatever, we know rough order of magnitude plus or minus, what kind of range we're talking about, consistency, with how pricing is done as well, and communication about the impacts that we might be anticipating because of supply conditions, you name it. I think in the same vein, relative to development, like Sunstall, for example, we want to have a sense of what is their their pricing methodology when they're bidding a project to build. If it's a certain distance away from a main travel destination, how do we anticipate what that build cost is going to be? And then in a similar vein, when it comes to actually the EPC work, it's about forecasting, right? The partnership element. We're sharing that information with each other. We trust each other enough that we believe this will be a good fit for you guys. It's going to be coming down the line 6 months from now. Do you have the resource availability? Do you have the ability to access this particular labor market near where we're operating? At the end of the day, how accountable are you relative to those commitments and the scheduling, with that scope in mind? So again, I can't say enough good things about the OMCO team and Sunstall. I think boiling it all down, we as a development EPC company are very comfortable working with these two because we know what we're going to get and it's repeatable.
Great. Well, I want to thank our panelists today, Eric Goodwin with OMCO, Matt Kessler with OMCO, Helga Biernath with Sunstall, and John Mittman with Oboto. We will be publishing the recording, and you will receive an email notification when that goes live in about a week and a half. Please check out all of our content at Clean Power Hour Live. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you all for being here, and I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.